swimming pool or the river, and then you manage to get them out, and they're lying on the side and they're unconscious. You wonder, is the heart beating? Are they breathing? This is when you need to know how to do CPR. And there's also other things that can trigger this. Electrocution, being hit by a car, a lot of things like that. So this webinar is going to show you how to do CPR in both dogs and cats. I'm Dr. Jeff Grognet, and this is my friend Courtney. And Courtney and I are going to show you how to do CPR in dogs. All this will also apply to cats. There's going to be one little thing later I'll tell you the difference with, but everything I'm going to show you is going to apply to cat CPR as well. The first thing we're going to be checking is the A of the ABCs, and that is the airway. We want to know, do we have air going in from the nose into the chest? In other words, do we have an open airway? So the first thing we're going to do is check the mouth. I'm just going to turn Courtney around. And the way we do that is to pull the tongue out and then have a look inside and then do a sweep, pulling out whatever might be in there. Now the key with that is if we have a dog that then tries to bite us as we're doing it, we probably don't need to do CPR. So anyway, check and do a swab as long as the dog will allow it. If she does, then the next thing we're going to do is do a test breath. And the way we do that is by blowing in the nostrils. And then we're going to watch the chest go up and down. So if you just saw that, we can see that this chest was moving up and down. So we have an open airway. Another quick way to check is to also put pressure on the chest at the same time feeling in front of the nostrils. So that way we can see, or actually feel, if there's air coming out. We can also put our face here and we can feel it. And so that tells us we have an open airway. That's the first step. The next thing is, do we have breathing? Now sometimes this isn't that easy to spot, but I want you to have a look for this. Watch the chest and see if it's moving up and down. The other thing you can do is to put your hand on it and just feel it. See if it feels like it's moving. Okay, and the other thing that we just did with the push on the chest, sometimes that will stimulate a breath. Great. If they're breathing, we don't need to breathe for them in most cases. So if we've got all that working, the next thing is C, circulation. Now in human land, one of the things that they do usually is they will check for a pulse, like in the wrist or in the carotid, or right on the chest itself using an ECG or some type of machine. And that way it tells us if the heart's working or not. With dogs, it's a lot harder to check the pulse. So sometimes you're feeling it down here, what I call the femoral pulse, that's right on the back leg. Other times you're feeling the chest to see if you can feel the beat. But what the latest guidelines are is that you shouldn't bother doing that. If the dog, it looks like it needs to have what we call thoracic compressions done, and that is pushing down to get the heart pumping, we don't want to waste time trying to check a pulse. We go straight to working on the heart, doing the compressions. Okay, so anyway, let's move on to that because that's going to be our next thing. We check the airway, it's open, the breathing is not happening. We've got enough reason then to move right in doing compressions. There's two ways to do compressions in dogs. One is putting pressure right over the heart, and the other one is putting pressure at what we call the greatest width of the chest, which is just up from there. There's the heart, and here's the other place. Now, the difference between the two is based on anatomy of the dog, but the majority of dogs, you're going to do it at the point of the highest width or the largest width of the chest. And the way you're going to do it is just like you do it in people, and that is you'd have two hands on the chest and you'd be pushing down. Now when you're pushing down, the first thing you have to determine is what rate do you use. The rate is about 120 per minute. And this is just like it is in people, and that is the song, the Bee Gees hit, which was Staying Alive. You're going to start just doing that to that beat. Now, any dogs and any cats, both of them are done at the same rate. We used to do smaller animals at a faster rate, but now we know that was too fast. It didn't allow time for the chest to refill, to rebound. So we want to use a rate of 120. And so we're going to put our hands together right over the point of the highest, not the highest, the thickest diameter of the chest, and we're going to push down about half to a third of the width of the chest. So it's a considerable amount. And that's how we're going to do it. We're going to keep our arms locked, we're going to keep our arms straight. We're not going to be doing it like this. We're going to actually keep it locked and use our core strength, our back, to get things moving. And that way you'll be able to keep things going. Now, the way that we do it in dogs and cats is we want to put the pressure on and do about 30 compressions at a rate of 120 a minute. So you're going to be doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, keep going, 28, 29, 30, and then you take a break, you go to the nose, and you give 2 quick breaths, both of them within or lasting about a second. So you're going to do this, like so, and then you go back to the chest. Okay? So that's the rhythm that you're going to do. If you've got one person, you're going to be doing the chest, you're going to be moving to the nose. You're going to be doing the chest and back to the nose. If you've got 2 people, then one person can do 30 compressions, the other person can do 2 breaths, and the same person goes back to doing the compressions again. The key is, try to trade off. You shouldn't be doing the compressions for more than about 2 minutes at a time, or else you will get fatigued. And what happens is that when you're doing this, you're getting a little bit tired, you're going to push down, but you're not going to get off the chest completely. And so because of that, there's going to be a little bit of residual pressure, and that's going to make the chest not fill or rebound as well as it should. So you want to stay fresh doing this. So I would do 2 minutes with someone else blowing, then we'd rotate while I give the breaths and they do the compressions. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you how to do this properly in one moment, but we talked about cats and also little tiny dogs when they're just very small, and that is, I'm talking the ones that are under 10 pounds or so. What you can do, rather than doing the compressions like that, and you can do them that way, but what you find is you can just usually put your hand right around the chest and then use your hands to do the chest compressions. It's a little bit easier, and you put your hand behind the back and the other one around the chest and just do the compressions that way. And then do the same thing, 30, and then do the things on the nose. So that's the way you can do it. What you want to do is to get your dog and get it in position so you know how to do it. Don't start pounding on the chest. I don't want you doing that. But what I want you to do is sort of just go through the mechanics of it. And that is, if you get your dog lying in front of you, then you can sort of say, okay, I'd be doing this, and then I would give a breath, then I would do it again. And that way you can just see how it gets done. And hopefully you'll never have to use it. That's what we hope in human side, and that is, a lot of us learn CPR, and we hope we never have to use it. But when it comes critical, we know how to do it. So let's move down. I'm going to move our little Courtney down to the floor so you can just see how we do it in a larger dog. So I've got Courtney on the floor, and this is how we're going to be normally doing CPR in a dog. They're going to be pushed up against our knees, and that way not moving backwards on us. And we're going to be able to go right over top, and that way we can put the pressure on, and using our backs, do it like that. Okay? So the key is being stable and you being balanced. You're not falling over at all. You want to be nice and square right over top. You cross your hands over and go right on the highest point of the chest and put the pressure on. If you've got a dog that's a sight hound, as in they have a very narrow chest, we are going to do what we call cardiac compressions and go directly over the heart, but that's another technique entirely. So I'll show you the most common one, and that is we're going to start doing compressions right here on the highest point. And so we're going to start going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and then immediately we go to the nose and do 2 breaths. And then go right back to it. So that's the technique. And are you going to damage ribs? It's possible, but the chances are quite low, except if you've got a very old dog with we call them crispy ribs, and they're very calcified. In most dogs and cats, especially cats, you're not going to break a rib unless you're really very forceful. So anyway, that's how we do it, and hopefully I've answered some questions.
How to give a newborn puppy CPR. So first of all, if they have really gone into complete cardiac collapse where the heart is stopped, the success rate of CPR is very, very slim. Even if CPR is performed within our hospital, the success at that point is extremely thin. Thankfully, most of the time when we have a puppy that comes out with not breathing and not a lot of energy and fairly lifeless, it's usually that their heart's still working fine, but they're not breathing, they're not able to breathe because of the mucus in them. So what we can do on that is utilize like a bulb syringe to go ahead and aspirate some of the mucus out of the back of their throat. You can certainly try to do some with your finger, but it's hard to get aspiration back out. So depressing the bulb syringe, sticking it in the back of their throat, sucking the mucus up into the syringe, and then removing that from the puppy and repeating that multiple times. In addition to that, lots of vigorous rubbing onto them stimulates activity. If you ever observe the mother and what they do with a newborn puppy and how rough they can be with that, don't be scared of being too rough with them. Do a lot of vigorous rubbing. We do not recommend shaking them, but we do recommend lots of vigorous rubbing onto that. You can certainly try to do some breathing into their mouth. My success in that has been very poor, but it is certainly something you can try. Holding their mouth closed, breathing through their nose can try to help bring some in there. Thankfully, most of the time between the bulb syringe and lots of vigorous rubbing, they will come to life and not have any permanent damage that way. Another critical thing is, especially as time goes on, is make sure you keep them warm. We want to keep them in that 95 to 100 degree temperature. So providing them a hot water bottle, providing them a heat lamp, wrapping them up in a towel, all can help provide warmth for them. So the important things are clearing their airway out, lots of vigorous stimulation, and warmth. My name is Dr. Peter Brown, and today we talked about how to give CPR.
Questions on how to do CPR.